In a world where every choice matters and survival is not guaranteed, a mysterious invitation leads strangers into a deadly game. Secrets unfold, alliances are tested, and the true cost of freedom is revealed. Welcome to the final invitation, where the only way out is through. Prepare yourself for a journey filled with suspense, betrayal, and shocking truths. As the moonlight pierced through the cracked window, Mira stared at the eviction notice trembling in her hands. Her son, Aryan, slept peacefully on the old couch beside her, wrapped in a tattered blanket that barely kept him warm during the winter nights. She reached out to brush his hair from his face, her heart breaking with every thought of their uncertain future. The factory had shut down, leaving her without a job, and her savings had already been drained by overdue rent and Aryan's hospital bills from last year's accident. She clutched the letter tighter, anger and helplessness intertwining in her chest. The buzz of her phone broke the silence. She hesitated, fearing another debt collector. But when she opened the message, her hands trembled. It read, "Do you want a chance to change your life? Join the game. Prize, $10 million. Click here to accept." Her eyes scanned the words again. It was absurd. A scam, perhaps. But as her gaze fell on Aryan's fragile form, she felt a dangerous temptation. Could this be their miracle? Or a cruel trap? With a deep breath, she clicked the link, sealing her fate. The next morning, Mira woke in a blindingly white room, her head pounding. She wasn't in her apartment anymore. Around her, 200 strangers shuffled in confusion, their murmurs filling the sterile space. Everyone wore matching green tracksuits with numbers stitched on the front. Mira glanced at her own, 47. The smell of antiseptic lingered in the air, making her nauseous. Suddenly, a booming voice silenced the crowd. A screen flickered on, revealing masked figures in crimson uniforms standing atop a grand staircase. Their faces were hidden behind featureless black masks. "Welcome to the game," the voice announced, mechanical and devoid of emotion. "You have been selected because your lives are riddled with failure, debt, or loss. This is your chance to start over. The prize for winning, $10 million. The room erupted into murmurs of disbelief, hope, and fear. "But there is a cost," the voice continued, cold and merciless. "Fail any challenge and you will be eliminated, permanently." Before anyone could react, a masked man dragged a sobbing contestant forward. Without hesitation, the figure raised a gun and pulled the trigger. Blood sprayed across the pristine floor as the body crumpled. Screams erupted. Some tried to run, but the doors were bolted shut. Mira's breath caught in her throat. This wasn't a game. This was a nightmare. The first game was a twisted version of red light, green light. Contestants were to cross a massive field under the gaze of a towering mechanical doll. It sang an eerie, distorted tune, signaling when they could move. If the doll caught anyone moving after red light, snipers stationed above the field would shoot them. As the countdown began, Mira's legs felt like lead. The doll's head swiveled, and its haunting melody began. "Green light, red light." Contestants sprinted forward, but the first shot rang out before Mira could move. A woman fell beside her, her face frozen in shock as blood pooled around her. Mira forced herself to move, her heart pounding. Each step felt heavier than the last. Suddenly, a young man next to her tripped and latched onto her leg, his face pale with terror. "Please help me," he begged. Tears welled in Mira's eyes. She wanted to help, but the doll's melody signaled another round. "Green light." She pulled her leg free and sprinted. Behind her, the young man screamed as a shot echoed across the field. When she finally crossed the finish line, her knees buckled and she collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably. Out of 200 contestants, only 120 remained. That evening, the survivors were escorted to a grand dining hall, its opulence a stark contrast to the bloodshed. The tables were lined with gourmet dishes, but Mira couldn't bring herself to eat. The faces of the fallen haunted her every thought. "Impressive, isn't it?" a familiar voice said beside her. Mira turned and froze. Sitting next to her was Naina, her childhood best friend. "Naina?" Mira whispered, her voice trembling. "But you died in that car crash 3 years ago." Nina smiled faintly, her eyes unreadable. I didn't die, Mira. I was recruited, just like you. But this place changes people. Mira's blood ran cold. What do you mean? Why are you here? Nina's expression hardened. I'm here because I chose to survive. But listen carefully. Trust no one, not even me. You're not just playing against the game, you're playing against them. Before Mira could ask what she meant, masked guards entered, announcing the next challenge. Nina leaned closer and whispered, "Watch the mirrors. They're not just reflections." The contestants were led into a maze of mirrored corridors. The walls shimmered with their reflections, stretching endlessly in all directions. Mira's pulse quickened as the automated voice spoke. Your task is simple. Find the exit before time runs out. But beware, not all reflections are your own. As the countdown began, Mira noticed something chilling. Her reflection in the mirror didn't mimic her movements. Instead, it smiled wickedly, even as her own face remained frozen in terror. A blood-curdling scream echoed from deeper within the maze, followed by the sound of shattering glass. The lights flickered, plunging the corridors into darkness. Mira pressed herself against the wall, her breath shallow. Somewhere in the distance, footsteps approached. Suddenly, a faint whisper came from behind her. Mira, don't trust the mirrors. She spun around, but there was no one there, just her reflection, grinning maniacally. The game is far from over, and the stakes are only getting higher. What lies ahead for our players? Will they uncover the truth, or will the next challenge take them one step closer to the end? Stay tuned for the next episode of The Final Invitation. Subscribe now and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode. Your invitation to the mystery continues.